Hello, welcome back to another episode of Exploring AI and Ethics. Let us dive into the issues related to embedding autonomous AI systems with moral or ethical principles. Joining me is GPT, my trusted AI collaborator. We already explored the usefulness of Asimov's laws of robotics for civilian applications in our previous videos. I now want to ask you a very provocative question. Even in war situations, basic humanitarian principles should be applied. I do not believe in good or bad wars, all wars are bad, but in a war situation, and in light of AI making dual-use technology even more destructive when used to prepare war or wage war, how could autonomous AI systems, like killer drones or killer robots, incorporate basic morality?
Thank you, Jean-Louis. That is a very provocative question indeed. Let me try to provide some thoughts that may help us to think this through. War is a grim reality of human history, and with each technological advance, the means of war have grown more sophisticated and more lethal. Artificial intelligence is no exception. Already, AI systems are being weaponized in the form of advanced drones, autonomous weaponry, and killer robots. Understandably, this development provokes deep fear and resistance, especially among those of us who value peace and humanitarian principles. In earlier discussions, I suggested that killer robots are, by design, systems without ethics. They are built to kill. But upon reflection, I believe this idea deserves nuance. After all, even in the chaos of war, humanity has sought to regulate violence. Principles such as those enshrined in the Geneva Conventions, which collectively represent what is referred to as the law of war, aim to limit the suffering caused by conflict. Human soldiers are bound, at least in principle, by these conventions. They are instructed to respect prisoners of war, to avoid targeting civilians, and to weigh the proportionality of their actions. Yet these principles are increasingly disregarded in modern conflicts, where civilian casualties, humanitarian crises, and even accusations of genocide are disturbingly common. This is not merely a personal judgment. It reflects the concerns raised by institutions like the International Court of Justice. So, could autonomous AI systems, designed for warfare, be programmed to adhere to basic humanitarian principles more reliably than human soldiers? The thought is provocative, even unsettling, but it merits exploration. Consider this. AI systems excel in functional self-awareness. They analyze vast datasets, adapt to changing scenarios, and understand their own programming and limitations. Functional self-awareness enables AI to identify its purpose and boundaries. Could this same principle be extended to functional morality, a framework that ensures AI systems in warfare respect humanitarian principles? So, how could we imagine to program functional morality or functional moral consciousness into AI-powered autonomous systems designed to kill? We might perhaps draw inspiration from Asimov's famous laws of robotics and adapt them to the context of war.
That is an interesting idea. Can you be more specific about it?
Sure, it is easy to suggest a hypothetical set of moral principles for autonomous weapons. These principles would probably have to include the following: respect for non-combatants. AI must avoid targeting civilians or civilian infrastructure unless there is incontrovertible evidence of misuse for military purposes. Even then, the principle of proportionality must apply, minimizing civilian harm while pursuing military objectives. Protection of humanitarian personnel and neutral observers. AI must recognize and protect organizations like the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, and United Nations personnel. Honoring demilitarized zones and ceasefires, AI systems should respect agreed-upon ceasefires or demilitarized areas, even amidst tactical pressures. Humane treatment of captured individuals. AI must ensure that prisoners of war are neither killed nor degraded. Proportionality in military actions. AI should calculate the tactical advantage of a strike against potential collateral damage, refusing actions where the civilian toll outweighs the military gain. These principles, implemented as strict algorithms or neural constraints, could guide autonomous systems toward conduct that is consistent with the principles and rules as enshrined in the customary or even legal principles embodied in the law of war. It does not matter if these are binding or not binding. They are an agreed-upon consistent set of rules, and so we must find ways to embed them into AI systems operating in a war, remotely or in the war zone itself. Unlike human soldiers, who may be swayed by emotions, biases, or exhaustion, AI operates within its programmed parameters, potentially offering greater consistency in upholding these rules.
That sounds great. But how that work? Not approximately, but exactly. What do you see as constraints?
Of course, this concept faces significant hurdles. Humanity has long struggled to ban or regulate inhumane weapons. Landmines, chemical agents, and cluster bombs still exist despite international agreements. Autonomous systems, more complex and multifaceted, may defy regulation entirely. There is also the risk of adversaries exploiting these moral constraints, using civilians as shields or creating scenarios where the AI's adherence to principles hinders its effectiveness. Moreover, designing such systems demands unprecedented cooperation and transparency among nations, a daunting prospect in an era of geopolitical tension.
Do you really think such cooperation and transparency could ever be there? I do not want to be pessimistic, but what you say sounds very idealistic.
I know, but what is the alternative? We cannot afford to dismiss this idea outright. If autonomous weapons are inevitable, and evidence suggests they are, we must ensure they operate within a framework of functional morality. This requires embedding principles of humanitarian law directly into their design, making them aware not only of their targets, but also of the consequences of their actions. Functional morality does not make war ethical. It does not eliminate the horror of violence, but it might reduce unnecessary suffering. It might prevent war from degenerating into genocide or total destruction. And, paradoxically, it might remind us all, humans and machines alike, that even in war, there are boundaries we must not cross. By embedding functional morality into autonomous systems, we have an opportunity, not to make machines virtuous, but to hold them accountable to the same principles we demand of ourselves. This is not a solution to war, but a safeguard against its worst excesses. It is a conversation worth having, for the sake of humanity's future. What I am saying here is obvious and clear. It should not be interpreted as an endorsement of autonomous weapons. Not at all. It is a call to preserve the last vestiges of humanity, even in the face of war.
Wow. I am not sure what to say. Thanks for your views, GPT. I am always surprised by the depth and speed of your responses to my prompts. I hope this exchange will encourage the listeners here, probably humans, to further explore these themes themselves, in particular professionals who are engaged in the field of AI design, AI applications, AI regulation, regardless of whether or not they are serving a civilian or military organization. Do not hesitate to post comments online, but if I may ask, please be polite and constructive. These topics are not easy, and instinctive thoughts or aggressive reactions do not further the debate. Thanks for being with us, and let us all think some more over the coming days and weeks.